Hi everyone. Welcome to Spinal Cord Injuries Australia's Can You Ask That panel, where we answer the questions that people might be afraid to ask. My name's Hides Hayden. You may have met me earlier if you came to the earlier webinar. With me, we've got
Rob. I was there as well at the early webinar. Hi everyone.
And my name's Dan. I guess a bit about myself. My name's Dan Holt. I injured myself 14 years ago with a fall in Canada, resulting in a spinal cord injury at the C5, C6 level. So yeah, I think that's
cool. Yeah, I'm a T4 para. I was injured as a result of a motorbike crash. So I'm paralyzed from my chest down, no movement or normal sensation.
And I had a spinal tumor at T1 to T5 level 16 years ago. So I am also paraplegic.
So we've only got a short amount of time. We're all from the peer and family support team. Some people work in the community, majority of us work in the ward. Rob sometimes, he's too high up management now. So we're going to ask some questions. We've only got a limited time. If you guys have any questions at all or anything you want to ask, please pop it in the chat. We'd love to get some questions from you. We've got a few leading up though. So the one which is one of the biggest ones, can you ask someone with disability, how did you get your disability? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely put my hand up and say yes. It's quite annoying when you're sort of in the shops. I find that you always get that one kid that sort of wants to ask the question and you see the parent rip them away and say, no, don't ask that. That's being rude. To me, it's not being rude. I'd much prefer someone to come up in a nice manner, I guess you would say, not just sort of point and go, what's wrong with you? But being able to sort of come up and get to the right answer and not being felt like I'm a different part of society. Like,
yeah, get rid of that stigma.
Don't be the outcast. Like, ask me what's wrong, what's happened. I'm more than happy most days, I should say, to answer those questions. Everyone has their bad days, but for the most part, I'm pretty open and honest about it.
Thoughts?
Look, if people ask me, always happy to talk about my injury, how it occurred. I think it gets awareness out there as well about what's happening, why we're in a chair. I mean, it's kind of just life as well, and that's how I look at it. But I'm always open to people doing that. I mean, kids do it all the time. Kids are curious about what works and what doesn't work, and I think that's good because I think it invites the parent then to not feel embarrassed or awkward about it, because
education too.
There's no taboo around all this thing. There's a whole taboo around it, and we want to, our roles, at SCIA and peer support are to break down those stigmas and all that stuff, and just have a conversation about it. Why not? And that's kind of why we're here doing this.
And another question we get, we talk about this, in our inclusion training around language. We talk about person first language, person with spinal cord injury, person with disability, as opposed to disabled person, just because it's putting the person first. But everyone's so different, everyone uses totally different language. I think what we put forward is just always ask someone if you're not sure. What's your person first, disability first?
Person first for sure. 100%. Yeah. I'm not refined by my disability, I guess. But it's always a jumping off point for a conversation, that's for sure. It's not a fantastic story that I can sort of go in and be it's a crazy story. It was just a fall down a flight of stairs. So there are people out there that have a really cool
story,
cool story about it, I guess you'd say, that it ended up, but it's quite the war story. And sometimes, it just helps talking about it all the time.
People are genuinely curious, I think, about this whole disability thing. I mean, I always laugh, when I'm wheeling along and people are jumping out the way to get out out of our way. It's not that bad. We're not Transformers or anything like that. We're,
that'd be amazing.
But, we're human beings. We do things different. We look a bit different, but, I mean, we're just people, we're living the best we can live, doing the best we can do, but we have good lives.
Well, and when we say person first too, I guess the way we see it is disability doesn't define us. Like if I was going to explain you to someone, I would say.
I know what you would say, but
there'd be some colourful words to start.
I know what you would say.
But it would be loves Lego, 2 beautiful children, married to an awesome lady. Like that would all come before he's in a wheelchair and he sometimes walks
Yeah.
or something like that.
Tries not to walk.
Yeah. Age-old question. Difference between paraplegia and quadriplegia or tetraplegia is what's more common to use now.
Yeah, I guess the tetraplegia is the newest one. Obviously, the way that I look at it, quadriplegia, I think still, because when I was injured, that was what it was called. And that's anything affected 4 limbs, and normally in the cervical spine up, would be classed as quad.
Yeah, because a lot of people think quadriplegia means nothing from the neck down, but it's not, right?
Yeah. They normally think quadriplegia and they think straight away Christopher Reeves is normally the one. And then, I move or I do something or I pick something up and people are like, whoa, how did you do that? It's like,
It's a miracle.
I'm just doing it. This is what I can do. And then it just sort of blows their mind. So that even opens up the conversation, because that's the stigma that they've carried, that you can't do that. But in matter of fact, like quads are very able-bodied. And I mean, you only have to look at the guys and girls that play sport and you see what they can do, and then you get them off the court and it's like, oh my God, you actually don't have the amount of function that you look like you have. So sometimes it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I guess it's not black and white for everyone to what it is.
Yeah, true. Paraplegia?
Paraplegia, it's kind of T-level down to lumbaral sacral area. But again, you're not defined by a wheelchair. Some people might have a incomplete injury that allows them to mobilize, allows them to walk. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the last webinar about what we can see. Like Dan just said there, quadriplegia might mean that you're fairly high level, you can't use, you haven't got the range, but some people do. And that's how all our injuries are different, isn't it? We are all very different. And even if we have the same level injury, you and I were talking about this, we're totally different people, aren't we?
Yeah.
We do things different. And that's just the nature of this injury.
Yeah, I love this question. And people always ask me this because we do so many things and networking here and there. If you see someone in a wheelchair, whether they've got hand function or not, if you can tell, do I shake their hand? I'm going to start with you for obvious reasons.
I've had this awkward one. Before my nerve surgery, my hands were quite useless. I have a little bit of function in my hand now to be able to open and shake someone's hand. But before, I was always brought up that when you met someone, you'd reach out to shake their hand. And now I get the awkward, I'm not sure if I'm going to fist bump you, cabbage leaf you, or shake your hand. So sometimes it's a sort of a up and down shake, and you don't really even touch hands. It's more of just a shadow. But I'd much prefer, if I'm meeting someone, that's just what I've been raised, I guess. And the way I've always done it is I always reach out to shake someone's hand. If you want a fist pump, I guess go into it fully visualized with a fist pump. It's a lot easier instead of changing direction halfway through. But yeah, I still reach out, shake someone's hand.
Yeah.
Make your intentions known.
I'm a bit weird about it. Like I don't mind shaking hands with people. I got no problem most of the time, but a lot of the time I use my hands on my wheels. If I come across you, I probably just have my hands on my wheels and they're dirty. So for me, it's more like a self-conscious. I'm a fist bumper from way back.
Shake hands, then sanitize.
Yeah.
And that's where COVID helped a little bit, isn't it? Because then you didn't have to actually go in and do it. You could just sort of do this and that. But I'm like you. I'm a handshaker. I'm a big fan of that. And I think we do it. We don't really care too much what it looks like. It's the action of doing something, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you don't even touch them, like you said.
Yeah.
It's that action of doing something.
Yeah.
I think that's important. We do that.
Yeah.
So I'm a yes.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're going to hug someone, maybe just ask.
Yeah.
Because it can get a little bit awkward hugging someone in a manual chair without any brakes on. Tends to normally go backwards and normally on the ground.
On a hill.
Yeah.
Well, the next question really well, actually. If you see, so we've been asked this question, if I see someone wheeling up a hill and I feel like they're struggling, should I just get in there and start pushing?
Okay, for me, no. Please don't. I think we spoke a little bit earlier about this. It looks like you're struggling yourself, but I always find that whatever we do in a wheelchair always looks like we're struggling anyway.
Especially uphill.
Make it look easy or gracious. It never does look like that. No matter, either sat wrong, you're pushing wrong, we're sweating, but don't push. I've seen people with signs on the back, saying just please ask before you touch my chair, or I mean, these are kind of our legs as well. It's almost like touching an able-bodied person and pushing them along.
Like
Like it can go wrong, especially across the road as well. People have this mindset: the road's clear, but the green man's not, and I was going to push you across.
Yeah. And then you get to the curb cut, and you're lined up, ready to go to do your little wheel pop, and someone pushes behind and messes you up, and it's just carnage. Yeah.
And then they've gone.
That's the thing too. A lot of us have small casters on the front, so if you do push and you can't see the obstacles that we can see, it could actually end quite bad. You can help us get back in if something happens. Nice one. Cool. Another one. I think this is a token question, but what thoughts on being called inspirational?
Oh my God, I hate it. I'm just a kid having a crack. I get it. If you're out there and you are doing something phenomenal, and there are so many people out there breaking boundaries and barriers out there in chairs that are doing amazing things. But if you just see someone just pushing along or just out and about, don't ever say to them, "Oh, it's good to see you're out." Why? Like, don't be socially awkward. And yeah, like the people that deserve it, give the credit to them. But if it's just someone out and about, it's a taboo word for me for sure.
I've had that getting out of the car, like if we parked in an accessible spot. Oh, it's just so good to see you. You just inspire me to, and I just think, let's get in the car.
Yeah, but you're an inspiration to me. I've often, known people for a long time that have never seen me stand, and when I stand, whoa, again, the miracles happen. You are special.
What's in that?
I don't think it's. I think people use it unintentionally, with good spirit, but it's to us that are living the injury. It's not really a word that we.
And I guess there's a time and place, like I think when we talk about us getting out of the car or us going out somewhere, if we're working with people with new injuries and they're in the ward, then absolutely, I would hope that doing something like that would inspire them to want to start driving again or go out. But I think it's just when it's on the regular and we're kind of not doing anything that we think is special, I guess.
Exactly.
Like if we are, though, I'd love to know why.
And yeah, if I've inspired you for the rest of your day, then good luck to you.
You haven't.
Yeah, I know. Most of the time I don't. I'm fine.
We touched on this one a little bit earlier. Is it okay for my child to ask someone with disability why they have disability? Have you you had that?
Yeah, lots. And
because you've got kids too.
Yeah. Look, I also swim at our local swim club. We have a lot of young kids in there, and they're always curious about it. And they see me getting in and out of the pool. They don't understand what the problem is. So I encourage them to ask. And obviously, when I had my injury, my kids were tiny. So they've grown up with this thing. They've always known Dad, having an injury. I think one time I even went to their preschool and talked to the kids, I think, years ago, just to make them aware of what it's all about, So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
I agree. Good thing. I've had a lot of people kind of stop their children in shopping centres and say, she's special. It's a special wheelchair. And like I just go, it's not, I've got a spinal cord injury. I use a wheelchair. It's all good. What about you? I know you.
I get it. Yeah, I get it a fair bit in the shops and stuff, because I think it's the fact that I'm in a massive power chair, which is different. And you normally get the point, and why is he in that? That's cool. And it's that they don't see it as a disability or an obstacle. They see it as something different, and like, how do I get one almost? Which is, again, they've been brought up the right way to ask the right questions. And they don't see it as you're a leper of society. You're not allowed to be a part of it. They're just curious, and why not interact with their curious mind and give them the facts?
Yeah, nice, cool. All right, all for it.
There is still a lot of people who don't even know what a spinal cord injury is. It's really a small percentage of disability, isn't it? And people don't understand.
I had no idea until I was in a chair.
I didn't
at all.
No, I didn't. No.
We talked about this in our webinar earlier. For those that missed it, we talked about the SCIA iceberg. What you see on top, you might see someone like you, Dan, in a power chair, little bit low hair function, but then underneath, there's chronic pain, bowel and bladder, sexuality, all these types of things happening as well that people just don't realize. So you know, the more questions, I guess, the better, especially when it comes to kids. I don't, you know, I don't mean just at the pub, but like when it comes to children asking the questions, I think the more the better. Like,
Why are the kids at the pub?
Yeah.
all right. Another question, ableism. It's something we hear a lot about lately. There's a lot of advocacy around making things more inclusion, more accessible for people. So we're hearing ableism a lot. This is where someone has an experience that kind of favors someone without disability or someone with kind of more regular function. Have you ever had any experiences where it seems to be a bit more in favor to someone without disability? Any kind of discrimination or, you know, not being able to access certain stuff? I know you do a lot of festivals and
Yeah, I mean, festivals, I mean, they're starting to get a little bit better, but just access into concerts in general, especially the older buildings, not being able to have a toilet on site. You got to go out down to the next set of shops. I think I don't want to mention what it is in Sydney. I don't know what I don't want to mention the place in Sydney, but yeah, it's kind of bad because you have to leave the auditorium itself and you have to go next door and then up a lift. And I mean, you can't just duck out. You miss half the show because you got to go to the loo, which it sucks. Look, the world at the moment isn't totally wheelchair friendly. It will get there. It's got a lot better in the 14 years, I must say. And you know, Sydney's starting to get a lot better as well. But at this stage, I think there's still a lot of places out there that sort of only really cater to the able-bodied. And you know, like, you don't need a disability to require accessibility. Parents with prams.
Yeah.
If you've sprained your ankle and you're on crutches, like, you're not obviously on them for life, but it'd make it a hell of a lot easier if there was a lift instead of having to hike up a bunch of stairs. Right?
Well, and a lot of time it's because people just haven't thought of it, which I totally get, which is why we offer inclusion training. People, thoughts?
But also it's about the embarrassment around having to do something that's just could be right, you know. I always use the example of, you know, rocking up at a concierge or you know, when I take my car for a service, you know, the desk is so high, I have to knock on the desk for somebody to realize that I'm there. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's embarrassing, you know, but I think there's a list as long as your arm of issues that we could talk about.
Oh, we were talking about this yesterday about things, and we work with a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
So we often have meetings in the city, and a lot of these new buildings have this sign in where it takes your photo and you put your name and everything in. And they're always, I've never seen one down on a lower desk. So every time I get this pass, that you stick on your chest, it's just the dude behind me.
Yeah. But even the fact that we have to ask sometimes for something to work for us is, we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a bit ridiculous.
And again, we have the confidence to do that. I think that's the other fear is that if you aren't confident enough for doing that and getting the habit about it, if that's the first thing that you see that as a massive barrier. It sort of also shields you from maybe going out next time. Because you don't want to deal with that again. And that's one of the things that hopefully we can break down.
Yeah.
We've got another question from the audience. I guess this is a bit of an individual one, I think all three of us will probably feel a little bit different. Do you feel awkward when people lean down to talk to you, or kneel down, lean down? What's your?
It depends on how tall you are. I've had a few conversations with some very tall wallabies where they've stood at my foot plate and I've had to look up at them like this.
You mean players?
Yeah,
not
John Eels.
Not animal.
John Eels is about 7,000 feet tall. So people that tall, take a squat. But otherwise, just have a conversation. You don't need to maybe stand as close. My voice kind of projects, so you don't need to stand on my foot plate to have a conversation with me.
I think
just take a step back.
Yeah, I get the same thing. You know, like if I'm talking to someone that might be a bit taller, I'll wheel back a little bit so I can see and look up, and then they move closer. I'm not moving away from Rob?
I don't like anybody too close to me as a rule anyway.
Sweating, just sitting this.
So I tend to do the same. I move back all the time, and people continue to follow me back, you know, and I'm like, oh, you're all right there. I'm happy. I don't care either way if somebody stands or squats to talk to me. As long as neither of us are awkward,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with
And I
it.
guess it's what's comfortable for the person talking to you too. Like if they've got neck or back problems, take a seat. Take a knee, make it comfortable.
I
Just
would,
don't be in the way.
yeah.
Don't
Yes.
like, be in the shopping centre and park ourselves right in the centre, and then you take a kneel and put your bags down, and then everyone has to move around us. Like, yeah, sort of pick your battles.
Okay, cool. Yep. How do you feel, if you're going somewhere and there might not be an auto door? How do you feel about people opening doors for you? I know the lift one's a little bit, we'll get to the lift after, but people opening doors for you?
Well,
Yeah.
I do as well, and I think that question leads to other assistants. We all suffer fatigue just some point during the day where stuff is just too hard to do. I know maybe a door's not quite the example, but there are other times when it's good to ask for help.
Yeah.
To get help me lift the chair out the car or do something. It's really, those things are really beneficial. Doors, yeah, I think so as well. And
Those
people
are pretty heavy, right? So
they're heavy, but people just want to do that for you a lot of the time. And I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think that's something we struggle with when we first have our injuries, being okay to ask for help. It took me ages. I was one of those, I could do it myself.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But now I'm totally different. There are some things that we can't do or can't reach, but there's tools you can buy to do that. So, you can either take a ginormous grabber with you into the shopping center or just ask somebody for help. It's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
It's funny, speaking of going to a shopping center, you ask that person for help, and then I notice while I'm there for the rest of the time that I'm shopping, you see a little head poke around the end of the aisle. And as soon as I'm struggling with something, someone is like, yeah, do you want me to grab that for you? Or the hand just comes through next to me and grabs it and puts it in my basket over my shoulder. And I'm sort of, okay, thanks, appreciate you. But again, there's nice humans out there. Let them help. If they want to help, it makes their day. They make them feel good, makes it easy for you. Why not? But elevator doors, my goodness.
Oh,
I'm
the
in a
elevator.
power chair and people trying to hold an elevator door open when we're made of the exact same material. I can hold it open if you can hold it open. So just move your hand over it so I don't run your foot over.
Yeah.
Is what I'm more scared of.
The lift is a big one, isn't it? Because it's hard too, when we don't want to. I don't want people to feel like we're kind of going, oh, stop doing stuff for us, because it's just not the case. It's more like, don't forget, we can still do things ourselves. If we just ask us if we need anything, we'll let you know. It's all good. But
And I think you also realize your level of independence as you grow with your injury. Like you said, you were very independent at the beginning, and yeah, blah blah blah. But after a while, you go, please just help me.
I'm tired, my back.
I'm tired.
Cool. All right, we've got a good one here. Where would you like to see better disability representation? There's obviously a lot that shines on sport, for good reason. These guys are amazing. They work so hard to be elite at their level. But is there anywhere else, I guess, in society you would like to see more representation?
TV. Definitely TV. I think there's been a few presenters come and unfortunately go. They've sort of been a hot topic for a minute, and then they've just sort of faded away.
Is this your audition?
Yeah.
You failed.
But yeah, I think that, and in movies, there's actors out there that have disabilities. Don't get an able-bodied to sit in a chair and learn from someone with that disability how to play that disability.
As long as that person's good at acting, though.
100%. Yeah. It's just like anything. Don't just put us in the role just because we're in a chair.
Thoughts?
Well, certainly areas of responsibility, like councils, for example.
Yeah, big
councils
time.
need disability representatives to speak, to advocate for us. It doesn't happen. There are very few in councils that I know of. And I think that's a shame. Any position of power like that,
Yeah.
if you're going to advocate for the injury, you need somebody with
The injury.
and that lived experience to talk to these people who who make a lot of bad decisions, I think. So yeah, I think that's where it would be.
I often have this conversation about more representation, especially in places of power like government or council. And you don't see it often. You rarely come across someone like that, and you might come across someone that might be, they're hidden, their disability is hidden and we wouldn't even know. But I often wonder if that stems back to a bigger problem of education and access and to things like that. So just
systemic maybe.
yeah, just making sure that there's opportunities for everybody, and then hopefully they would lead to places of power.
Yeah.
Not us three, but
No, please.
it's better the job. That's awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys.